Yeah. Well, hello, everybody. Let me take this off my screen. And welcome to the regular meeting of the Park and Recreation Commission meeting of June 17th, 2021. The time is just after 2 minutes after 6 is what I got. And I invite Becky to call roll.
All right, Commissioner Cabrales.
Here.
Commissioner Emerson.
Here.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Here.
Commissioner Lauman. Absent. Chair Machado.
Here.
Commissioner Reisinger is also absent, and Commissioner Sandoval.
Here.
Thank you.
I'll invite Becky to explain how the public can participate in this evening's agenda.
All right, good evening, everyone. Viewers are welcome to provide public comment online through Zoom or by telephone at 669-900-9128. And the meeting ID is 946-03488-5912#. If you are watching this meeting through Zoom, please select the panelist button and select raise hand if you wish to speak. If you are participating by telephone and wish to speak, please press *9. When it is your turn to speak, you will be notified by the host inviting you to participate. You need to press *6 to unmute yourself. Once you are unmuted, you will have 3 minutes to provide your comments.
All right. And are there any amendments to this evening's agenda?
There are none.
Okay. So we need to approve the minutes from last month. And oh, by the way, Cicely, thank you so much for filling in. Appreciate it. Thank you. Are there any questions in regards to the minutes from last month? Any comments from staff?
None.
And do we have any public?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Okay, so I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes from last month. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll move to approve.
All right, may I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion in regards to that? Okay, so the minutes are approved from last month.
All right, let me call a roll call. Commissioner Cabrales.
Yes.
Commissioner Emerson.
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yes.
Chair Machado.
Yep.
And Commissioner Sandoval.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Susan, are there any introductions, award recognitions, presentations?
There sure is.
All right.
So it's our pleasure tonight to introduce Patty McCulley, who's our program coordinator. She
Okay.
helps out at the San Rafael Community Center, and she mainly supports the Golden Heirs pre-COVID. Although they have been, out of the building for the last year and a half, she's been quite busy supporting us over at Falkirk Cultural Center, as well as a variety of support in regards to programs. But tonight, she's going to talk a little bit about movies in the park, which are coming back for 2021. So
All right.
I'll let Patty tell you a little bit about it.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Hi, Patty.
It's a little warm here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm working on getting my screen here for you. All right. All right. So movies in the park. I just need to move this out of the way. Movies in the Park started in 2017 as part of a month-long Parks Make Life Better celebration during July Parks and Recreation Month. The celebration featured weekly concerts in the parks and culminated with a showing of Sandlot at Gerstle Park. In 2018 and 2019, the number of movies grew to 4 and 5 movies at a variety of parks, including Pickleweed Park, Victor Jones Park, Albert Park, Terra Linda Park, Falkirk, and Gerstle Park. In 2020, we were not able to host the event. We typically see about 80 to 120 people at each movie. Participants bring picnic blankets, chairs, snacks, and dinner as they settle into a spot on the grass and enjoy talking to neighbors, playing in the park, and watching the movie. The event is free to the community. At many of the movies, we are joined by community groups, local businesses, or other departments to add a little something special to the event. Some of the people that have joined us in the past are the Santa Fe Library, who have read stories before the film begins, Canal Youth and Family Council, Silberman's, and Kona Ice, who have all sold treats to the crowd. We choose movies that are family friendly, that everyone can enjoy. Some favorites in the past have been Coco, the Lego Movie 2, WALL-E, and The Incredibles. The movies are shown on large screens except at Pickleweed Park. In 2018, we were in the middle of showing the movie on the big screen, and the wind began to howl. The wind just came up terribly out there, and the screen began bouncing, and staff jumped on the back of the screen to keep it down. And the screen just continued to blow, pulled the stakes out of the ground. And we were just getting ready to cancel the movie when the movie was shining up on the side of the building, and it looked fabulous. So we were able to continue with the movie. The crowd was very happy. So were we, because we didn't want to disappoint them. And so from then on, we did not have to pay for a screen. So that's really nice out there, and it's shown up on the side of the building. So we contract with Fun Flicks Outdoor Movies to provide all of the supplies that we need, the screen, the sound equipment, movie. They help us with the movie licensing, and they provide staff to do the setup and breakdown of all the equipment. The cost per movie is approximately $1,600. It does vary a little bit here and there, depending on what the movie title is and how much the movie licensing is for a particular movie. Movie titles are decided on by staff at the various community centers. When time allows, we often will survey participants by sending out a poll or setting up some sort of voting at the front counter. This year, the movies have been chosen by staff. And as you can see, August 6th at Pickleweed Park will be The Lion King. It will be in Spanish with English subtitles. August 13th at Terra Linda will be Finding Dory. August 20th at Victor Jones, Moana. And then August 27th at Gerstle will be How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. That movie was scheduled in 2019, and we had to cancel it because of wind. We didn't have a building out there to show it on, so we did have to cancel it. And so this is the comeback with How to Train Your Dragon. So that is it. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you so much. Hey, commissioners, do you have any questions for Patty in regards to movies in the park? Hearing none?
I think it is important to note, I'm not sure if you caught that Patty mentioned that licensing is involved. Back in the day, people often would go down to their local Blockbuster. I know I'm dating myself there, and they would show movies. That's actually illegal to show a public viewing, even if you're not charging. So the reason why they're obviously expensive is we have to go through a distributor, or in this case, a company that includes not only providing the screen and staffing, they also provide the movie and the movie licenses. So that's the only way that we're allowed to do it publicly. The library actually is exempt from that. The library has libraries in general have a license to show movies within their facilities, very similar to education, but Parks and Rec cannot do that. We have to buy a license in order to show movies.
Hey, Patty, what's the lead time to get that licensing?
The licensing isn't too bad, but there are blackout dates, especially for Disney films. Like this, if Disney is having a movie come out, they won't allow sequels or things like that. Like this summer, there was a big blackout for 101 Dalmatians because of the Cruella movie that just came out. So usually it's booking the screen that is longer. So that's like a year in advance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Back in the day, about 20 years ago, before they mass produced the DVDs, as soon as they changed from reel to DVDs, multiple cities could show the same movie at the same night. But back, and again, I'm dating myself, but 20 years ago, it literally was on a reel. And so you had to book it out. And if it was taken, it was taken. They didn't have multiple copies sitting in a room somewhere. So it's a lot easier nowadays. And as Patty said, it's much more difficult to find companies that can provide the screen and the staffing, because they put it up and tear down and the whole thing with the audio visual. A lot of cities have had to go out and purchase the inflatable movie screens and equipment. And even 15 years ago, when I bought my last one for an agency, back then it cost us $18,000 just to buy the screen. And then obviously we augmented with additional speakers and stuff, because, to make sure all the sound could reach everybody in the audience. So this is actually a great option that Patty found, because $1,600 per week is a lot less, even though you get to keep the movie screen at $18,000, you have to store it. And it takes hours to put up and hours to tear down, and it costs a lot of staffing to do that. So it's actually, in hindsight, this is a brilliant way of providing this service.
And I know that the last time we spoke about the movies in the parks, there was some interest among the commissioners to perhaps kind of set up a booth or to attend in a more formal capacity to meet with people. I seem to remember it was maybe Commissioner Reisinger who had expressed that interest. We wanted to throw that out to this group if there was interest in organizing something like that. You guys would be welcome to come to these events, to speak to the community, but also recognizing that August is a big holiday month, and kind of up to you all. If you'd rather just attend as with your family or as commissioners.
What say you, commissioners? I wouldn't mind attending.
Yeah.
I'd do something.
Yeah,
Same.
I'd be open to it. I don't know. Those are all Fridays, right? That's what those dates are. Yeah. We are not traveling. So if it's something we want to do, I could be definitely persuaded to pick one.
If it is something that you'd like to do, what we can also do is give you if you wanted to get up in front of the group, introduce the movie, welcome everybody, we could give you, a few lines to say, maybe it's an upcoming, the Park and Rec master plan, tell the people a little bit about that, or some other events that are going on in the city. But we could definitely write you a few lines. So if you wanted to get up and introduce yourself and welcome everybody, we'll definitely give you a little script if you want to do something like that, so you don't have to wing it.
Thank goodness. Yeah, so just maybe Susan, you can, or staff can just kind of work on something like that for us, and just pick one of the dates and see if who's available.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we can email out the dates and locations, and folks can volunteer for the one they want to go to.
Great.
And more than one can come. Don't worry, it's not a violation of the Brown Act. So, we'll make sure you don't talk shop. How's that? You can talk about movies and stuff.
That's fine. All right. Patty, is Patty still here? Oh, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have
Yeah.
a great
Thank
night.
you.
And welcome
Bye.
back to Movies in the Park. Yeah. Becky, there's no public, so do we still need to go through the your dissertation here?
No, we still have no public in the audience, so we're okay.
Okay. All right. So matters before the commission. The first agenda item is the selection of 2 commissioners to participate on the screening committee for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan request for proposal process.
That would be me. So this is, the time has come, everyone. So I'm really excited about this. I know we have 2 of our commissioners that have been very much involved in the library and community center conceptual plan that just finished, but we're about ready to kick off the granddaddy of them all in our world. So if you hadn't noticed, the RFP, the request for a proposal for the Park and Recreation Master Plan, was posted last week on the city's website, and we're already gathering quite a bit of interest from a lot of consultants. So we're very excited about that. We want the best and the brightest to go after it. But as part of the process, you have the awesome opportunity to be part of the selection committee. So what we are looking for, there's going to be 2 ways to be involved. So let me start with the first part. The screening committee is made up of staff from the Public Works Department, Library and Recreation Department, and Community Development, as well as 2 of you and Councilmember Eli Hill. The charge of being part of the screening committee will be that you review the proposals that we receive, and that you meet with the rest of the screening committee to provide your feedback as to who you would like to see move on to the interviews. Then you'll be part of the process to interview them. And most likely it will be done via Zoom. My guess is, because it will be done and probably, let me look at the dates again. I think I emailed them. Let's see, they're in your staff report. So the final proposals will be due July 9th. We will be distributing the proposals either electronically or printed copies if you prefer. And then the screening committee, the first review meeting will be August 2nd from 2 to 4 p.m. That's when we'll get together as a committee, discuss kind of who we want to move on. And then the interviews are going to be pre-scheduled for the following dates, which are listed in your staff report, August 16th, 17th, and 18th, and the times are listed. That's assuming, again, that, you know, that gives us enough time to at least accommodate up to probably about probably 2 per time slot. So very likely we could interview as many as 6. We probably won't. We'll probably want to narrow that down to about 3 or 4 if possible. So that's the first part. So we're looking for 2 individuals who will do that. We will come back to you maybe as soon as next month and ask for you to select a commissioner to be on the steering committee. I know they sound very similar, but they're very different. The steering committee is going to be a very large committee comprised of members and representatives from a variety of boards and commissions that the city has, as well as a lot of nonprofit agencies and business organizations within the city to represent different perspectives going through this process and to help steer it. That's going to be a much longer process. Most likely that group will finally formally come together late fall, probably for a training. And then at the beginning of the year, the public process is going to start. And that will take 6 to 7 months. And most likely that committee is going to require that this group comes together probably once a month, about 6 times. So that's a different commitment. And like I said, I'll come back to you about that later. This is really just to be involved in helping to select the candidate that is going to guide us through this process. So what I'm looking for tonight is 2 of you that might be interested in doing that and has the time to do that in August.
So Susan, just to be clear, the consultant interviews is where the 2 folks will be involved. And those are these dates, 16th, 17th, and 18th. And each interview is 3.5 hours? 3 hours?
So those are the times that we've held. So what most likely we're going to try to do is narrow it down. So the first part is reviewing all the proposals. So you would receive the proposals on July 12th.
Okay.
And you have several weeks to obviously review them. Then we're going to come back to as a group together on August 2nd for those 2 hours and provide feedback on the proposals so we know which firms we'd like to invite back for interviews. Those
Okay.
consultant interviews that are indicated in your staff report are times that we've held aside to offer up to the consultants depending on what their availability is. So that this is possibly when the interviews could happen. That time frame might narrow down and not require all these hours and all these dates if we only have a couple of firms that we really want to consider.
Got it.
But for right now, this, we're holding these dates just in case.
Okay.
I
Commissioner,
would love to help, but this is my very, very, very busy season, and I just don't think I can. Certainly not any of those days. I'm booked. So I'm sorry, I have to opt out. Though I'd love to help.
Yeah, I'd love to help as well. I guess I was curious, like if I'm actually, Susan, I know we talked about the master plan when I was, before I interviewed for a spot on the commission. I don't want to join the screening committee and then also take the spot on the steering committee. So I'm open to hearing what other people want to do. I'd love to be involved in either way. And I've given it thought and I'm committed to putting in the time. So happy to help out.
so Robert, you want to do this, the steering committee is where you're more.
Well, I would do both, but I don't want to take
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
the thoughts from both. So, but I'm happy to do either one as well.
Okay. Cicely, you got anything?
I am happy to do the RFP reviews, but I'm out of town during those interview dates. I'm in town 16, 17, 18th. I'm not here.
Okay.
But otherwise I could do RFP. That's be easy for me to do. As far as, I don't think I have the bandwidth for the other, the other commitment, which even though my heart would be in it, but. So if folks want to move but it sounds like you guys have those pretty much set. So,
I think the only flexibility we would have with the screening committee, and this is, I want to hear all that you have to share with me. If we have people who can review the proposals and be part of the screening of the interview process, that's the best case scenario. If we couldn't do that, the only concern that I would have is somebody does read all the proposals and provides us feedback and says, here are the top 4 I want. And then we go forward with the interviews and it results in quite a different outcome than what that person, there's kind of a, sometimes it's hard to kind of follow of how did that happen, right? So again, we'll be flexible, but I know what it was like. We did have a couple of people on the library and community center conceptual design process who reviewed the proposals, but could not participate in all the interviews. So when it was finally wrapped up, they were kind of like, well, what happened? I thought they were our top candidate. So sometimes people really just don't understand how that process can really change. But I just wanted to state that to you. We would be flexible if you couldn't make something, but we also understand how important it is and how sometimes the results don't really reflect what you initially thought. That makes sense.
Got it. So I've never been a part of anything like all these RFPs, and are these like books? I mean, how much are we reading?
Yeah, they're big.
Okay.
So I'll share with you. I printed them out. Because I needed to write notes all over them, and I look at a computer all day. So after a while, especially during COVID, I couldn't stare at 18 proposals. I printed them, and it took a ream and a half of paper. It took 750 pages to print it all out, and I didn't print out all the addendums and stuff like that they added. So it can be a lot, but most of it's filler. I'll give you that. Most of it is them kind of grandstanding how great their company is. And so you cut to the chase and look at their references, your experience, and how they personalize it to San Rafael. Once you've done one, you kind of start to understand, what you're looking for in them.
That was how I felt with the ones for the library and rec conceptual design. It was, once you read like 2 of them cover to cover, you're like, okay, well, actually I can sort of summarize what I want out of like what I'm looking for. If somebody's completely out of like sort of, this person is not what we're looking for, you kind of put it aside, maybe read it later, or and a lot of photographs, at least for those, but I don't know if this one includes photographs.
Oh, yeah.
And so that takes up pages. But yeah, it was a stack. Yeah. I printed them out too because I couldn't read them all online. But I don't know, 6 to 10 hours or something, maybe.
Yeah, I think I read one, like I read a couple every night, just going through them. But once again, let me tell you why this is important. And I know you all work, and so I understand that that's your highest priority, and so are your families. But the reason why we're asking you is not every board and commission has this opportunity. This is a big process, and this will determine what the city does for the next 10 to 20 years. And the reason why we've asked for your involvement is you will be part of the steering committee, but you'll have one representative on that steering committee, just one. So as much as it's really in your shop, there's going to be a lot of stakeholders around that table who are going to help guide. I want to make sure that at the end of the day, you feel comfortable with the consultant that the city has hired to take us through that process. It's really important that you feel like, as whoever ends up on the steering committee and you're hearing these report outs at the very end, because you're going to be very much involved as commission, that you don't go, why did we pick them? You're going to really want to feel good about it. So that's the reason why we're including you, like we did the library board and the Park and Rec Commission on the last study. But again, this is kind of a new opportunity. This hasn't been done quite a bit. So that's the reason.
Like I said, I'm happy to do the RFP review. And if I was with one of my fellow commissioners, they could pass off our interest to the consultant interviews that I will not be able to attend. But I'm very comfortable with it. But if others want to have that experience, I encourage them to do it, because it's really fun to do all that reading and to score those applications and get a piece of government life.
I agree. I actually think it's great. And if you weren't able to make the interviews, yeah, you could tell your peer, hey, here are the top 4 that are going forward. Make sure to follow up on these questions. I want to make sure, I had a question about their proposal, or, can you kind of drill down on this?
Okay.
I'm hanging back because I just did that other thing and I didn't want to take the opportunity from other people. So I'm interested in the steering committee as well. But I'm not in town for part of that process, so I wasn't sure how that worked out. That's why I was also sort of listening to see what the options were for those meetings.
Well, the screening committee is the first part, right? So that's really concentrated in August. And then that will be done. It's done. And then the next process will probably be monthly meetings. And there will probably be about a total of 6 of those. And after this is all done, I'm going to run around and take my show on the road, so to speak, to all these different groups and say, give me somebody from your board or your commission to sit on this committee. And then once we have the committee and the consultant, we will identify those dates where those meetings are going to take place, that obviously all the members can attend. We're not going to kind of do it backwards. So that's a longer commitment, but it is not so concentrated. So it should be a lot easier for you to schedule around. But we're only going to need 1 commissioner and 1 alternate. Now the alternate can also attend all the meetings, but there's only 1 vote at the table, so to speak. I know that's a lot of information, but I thought you might need to know that, because you're kind of choosing between which type of involvement you want to have, or if you want to have both. So.
Well, and also just to add, all the meetings are open. So even if you were just interested in a particular aspect of the meeting, as it's going through, they're open to the public. So you're free to attend and make public comment.
That is accurate. Thank you for saying that. We just would encourage you not to talk about it, because it is your business. So, if you come to the meetings, not to talk about it afterwards, unless it's brought forward to you at your commission meeting where it's agendized.
So Commissioner Cabrales, I know that you're wanting to let other folks be part of it, but would you be willing to step in to that position? And
I was listening to the dates. I read them and then thought, oh, I'll just hold back on this one. But I believe the second you said was an important date, and I am not available on the second. I'm taking a family vacation. But
Are you
what were the
available-
other dates?
Are you available for the interviews though? The interviews are
16th,
3 days in a row.
16th, 17th, 18th from 2 to 4 is what you're saying?
Well, there's a variety of times. There's some times in the morning on 2 of the dates, and the other, there's some afternoon times.
Yeah, I guess I was holding back also because I was more interested in the steering committee. But if there's like a vacuum here, I can definitely step in.
Yeah, it sounds like you and Commissioner Sandoval have a similar thought on that. And I would say if you guys want to do it and are available, you should, and that shouldn't mean that you can't do the further work. I don't think it would, I mean, because I think we should have someone who can be there. I work the 16th, 17th, and 18th. I just can't. And the second I'm camping. So I just can't, but I think someone should be there who can be there, you know? So if you guys can, I would encourage you to do it. And if it comes to the work later on, I don't think that discredits you from putting in your name. It would be
as long as it's okay not to be available on the second, then yes, I am available on those 3 days for the interviews. So what's happening on the second? That's the part I wasn't quite clear on.
So the staff would get together with the 2 representatives from the commission and Councilmember Hill to discuss our findings, our individual findings. We would share out what our thoughts are and who we would like to go with based on the direction that we received that date. 3, 4, 5, maybe there's only 2 will be invited to those interviews. So those interviews might not be all those dates and all those hours. It just depends on the outcome. What we're trying to do is make sure we have enough time set aside for this in case we get, like we did with the library, 18 proposals, and we want to invite 6 of them back. We will have to have enough time to do that. So kind of overestimating.
So Susan, so if Commissioner Cabrales wanted to be part of it, and so she wasn't there for the screening committee review meeting, she would be able to speak with the other commissioner and have her views present in regards to that meeting.
Yeah, I mean, we would definitely reach out to whoever the individuals are if they couldn't make something and say, rank them, but give us some just basic comments by each one of them, things you liked, things you had concerns about, so that we could definitely take it forward. So whoever the other commissioner is, it's not on all of them to, make sure that they're speaking for 2 people, that we would make sure that some of those concerns are, and, also a 2-way conversation. So Taylor, for example, if you sent me the information, I'm also reviewing them. So you and I could talk beforehand and say, hey, let's go through some of these. And I want to make sure I understand what you're trying to say here, so I can follow up. Absolutely. Okay. We want to make this easy on you. I just really want to make sure it's not just a staff decision, that you feel comfortable in supporting whatever decision is made.
I think that we would be fortunate as a commission if we had a couple of people that were consistent throughout the whole process, which is my feeling. And I'm not sure how everybody else feels, but and if Commissioner Sandoval and Commissioner Cabrales wanted to do something like that, and then in regards to the later, since there's going to be on the steering committee, there's going to be one and an alternate. I think it would fit as well. So that's my feeling. Do I, Susan? Do I ask for a motion to, or?
Yes, we'd like a motion for the commission to select 2 commissioners to put forward to participate in the screening committee.
And that would be my motion. Can I make that? No, I can't do that, right? I'm asking for that motion.
Yeah, we need a motion of 2 commissioners to be elected.
So I'd like to get a motion for 2 commissioners that would handle this RFP process. And the motion would be for Commissioner Sandoval and Commissioner Cabrales to represent us.
I motion for Commissioner Sandoval and Cabrales to represent the RFP, the commission on the RFP application process.
Sure. And may I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay. Becky, do we do a roll call here?
Yeah, Commissioner Cabrales,
Yes.
Commissioner Emerson,
Yes.
Commissioner, who do we have here? Gutierrez,
Yes.
Chair Machado,
A wholehearted yes.
and Commissioner Sandoval.
Yes.
Right, thank you. Motion is
All right.
passed.
Fantastic. Thanks, you guys.
Is it possible for you to print that? Because I'm feeling like I'm going to get into that issue that you were having and my printer cannot handle a ream of paper.
Yes. So,
Is that possible?
yeah,
Okay.
I can tell you that when you signed up to be on the commission, didn't you? You had to come in with your own office supplies. So we will, April Miller, who is the new Assistant Public Works Director and the city engineer, is the project manager for this process. We're kind of co-leading this as a team. She has guaranteed us that she will make sure that copies of the proposals are printed. I'm going to let her know that all of us are going to want one. It's just easier. Commissioner Sandoval, if you don't want one and your eyes are still much better than mine and you want to stick to the electronic version, I'm happy to not print one, but in case you do, let me know.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Sandoval and Commissioner Cabrales. Very much appreciated. So the next agenda item is the review to review proposed scholarship and community center and meeting room fee waiver policies. And Catherine, are you up for that?
Yep, that's me. That's
All
a
right.
mouthful, isn't it? The second piece. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. Give me 1 second. All right, can you all see the presentation? See nodding heads. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, as you all know, as we presented on the last meeting, the city is in the process of updating our recreation or library and recreation fees, and those are going to be going forward to City Council on July 6th. So considering that we're looking at, increasing a number of our fees and restructuring them, it seems like it was particularly important to, at the same time, make sure that we're also updating and strengthening our programs that promote accessibility and affordability of our recreation programs. So within the city, we currently have 2 mechanisms for kind of reducing or waiving fees based on need, and that's to kind of help ensure that affordability is not a barrier to access for our community. And so those 2 mechanisms are a scholarship program and a rental fee waiver program. And so I'm going to talk about kind of each of those, kind of a little bit of background, and then go into the staff proposal for each of those separately. So currently both programs are rather informal and have largely been based off of kind of past practice and kind of what it's kind of just passed down through staff knowledge. We do have a fee waiver policy that was formally adopted as part of the Borough and Pickleweed Community Center use policy. However, that's kind of the only element of these programs that's been formally adopted and reviewed by either the commission or the council. So this is kind of the first time that staff are bringing these programs for review and for kind of a more formal, more formal review process. So, as I mentioned, staff really felt that given the current fee update, now was an important time to review these programs and to develop that formal policy and process around them. And we had a few different goals as we were developing these different policy proposals. One, we wanted to establish a clear and transparent process for staff in the community. We wanted something that that we would be able to put online and we would be able to share with the community kind of clearly what the requirements are and how they can access these programs. Second, we wanted to increase equity. We wanted to make sure that these programs were really actually meeting the need that was in the community and really widely available. And then we also wanted to be able to more effectively promote the program. So if we don't have kind of a formal documentation adopted, it's really difficult to let people know about it. So by creating kind of these documents, then we'd be able to put them on our website, and they'd be more easily accessible for folks. So now I'm going to talk about each program individually, starting with the scholarship policy. So as we started looking at our scholarship policy, we took a number of steps to develop the staff recommendation. First, we reached out to 7 different agencies to learn how they structured their programs. So we looked at kind of some of our neighboring agencies. We looked at Mill Valley and Novato, but we also looked at other agencies that are kind of known for their innovative programs, such as Roseville and Walnut Creek and Burlingame. So we looked at different elements of those programs, and there were certain things in common, but they really did vary. But we saw some interesting practices that we thought we would like to replicate here. So then we looked at our current program and identified opportunities where we could make it more equitable and more accessible for the community, and where we could incorporate some of those kind of innovative ideas that we saw in other agencies. We also spoke with our team about the needs that they've seen in the community, the requests they've gotten, and evaluated how we could expand the program that we currently have. So based off of that information, staff developed a proposed update to the scholarship policy and process. So this table here has what we currently do on the left and what we're proposing on the right. So currently the scholarship program is only for youth, high school or younger, and we're proposing to make it accessible to all residents. Currently the program is used only for class fees, and we would like to expand that to make it eligible for pretty much all programs except for rentals, drop-ins, Golden Heirs programs, which are not run by the city, and programs that involve gambling. So that would include swim passes and community garden plots, things like that. So there'd be, in addition to adult classes and programs. Currently, the scholarship funds up to 50% of a class fee, and we're proposing that we change that to 75% of a class or program fee, but set a cap per person at $200 per person or $500 per family per year. What we were realizing is that, for some folks, even 50% of the class fee might be a struggle. And so, by increasing that to 75%, we really hope to make those programs accessible for folks at all income levels. At the same time, we did want to put an annual cap because there's only so much scholarship money that we have. And so we want to make sure that this program is able to serve as many people as possible. I think that this is something that as we move forward with this program and as we understand better the demand for it and what we can accommodate with the scholarship budget that we have, that's something that we could revisit. But this seems like a fairly standard cap to set. We saw a similar cap at other agencies. So we thought this was a good place to start. We are also adjusting the eligibility criteria. Currently, folks are not eligible if they own a home and the parents must be employed or in training. We didn't really see those types of criteria within any of the other agencies. Basically, what we saw from other agencies is that they needed to be residents, and they needed to kind of show proof of participation either in a safety net program or proof that they were kind of in the low income category based on kind of the state and federal guidelines. So that's what we're proposing to change ours to as well, that the main criteria are that they need to be a resident and they either need to participate in a safety net program or to be able to show proof of income that they're in a low income category. For the allocation process, in the first year, we're proposing that we kind of do, basically we release our scholarship fundings in kind of 2 tranches, one starting in January 1st and one on July 1st. So we make 50% of the funds available starting January 1st and then 50% on July 1st. and folks would apply on a rolling basis, and it would kind of be allocated on first come, first serve until the funding is gone. And then kind of once the next timeline starts, then that money would, then we would start again. So again, I think this is a process that we want to pilot and see how it works for us. And maybe adjust as we learn moving forward. In terms of the funding source, currently our scholarships are funded through vending machine revenue, which we found we're kind of the only agency that does that. Many agencies add kind of like an optional donation to their activity registrations that funds the scholarship program. So we're proposing to actually add that to our activity registrations as well. And we would propose to do that when we transition over to the new, our new activity registration software in November. It would be kind of a good timing for us to set that up. And the new vendor that we are using has that option available. So those are the details on kind of what we're proposing for the scholarship policy. So now the meeting room fee waiver. So as we were looking at developing staff recommendations for this program, we first looked at kind of the policy that was already developed for pickleweed and boro community use policy. And we used that as kind of the baseline for our recommendation. In making kind of our recommendations around this program, we really focused on the goal of making sure that the community centers would be accessible to specifically local nonprofits and neighborhood associations, but that at the same time, this wouldn't kind of trying to reduce any impacts this might have on the ability of the facilities to generate revenue, since rental fees really are a critical source of revenue for the division. So kind of the proposed program is basically that in order to get this this meeting room fee waiver, the renter must be a San Rafael nonprofit or neighborhood association. The date of the event must be within 30 calendar days of the proposed rental date. That's kind of to ensure that, these are what we're really trying to do is make sure that if we've got meeting rooms that are available and aren't going to be used or rented anyways, that these nonprofits and neighborhood groups are able to access them. So that's kind of the idea behind this date range. The activity must be free of charge. There can't be a fundraising or revenue generating element to the activity. The event must be kind of for meeting or community outreach purposes only. The meetings must be held Monday through Friday within standard operating hours of the community center. If the requested hours are outside of the standard hours, then the renter would be subjected to additional staffing costs. So basically, the city wouldn't be taking on additional facility attendant fees. If it was, then the renter would need to subsidize that cost. This waiver would be for meeting rooms only and would not be applicable towards the rental of the multi-purpose room, auditorium, gymnasium, and/or kitchen. Really, the goal of this is to be a kind of a community meeting space, not necessarily a space for groups to put on large-scale events. And we would limit the number of fee waivers per group to 12 per calendar year. So I think that's about it. Those are kind of all the details. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you for any questions or feedback on this proposal. I think, we do really we are very curious about your feedback, and, I think getting community input on this process is pretty important, so.
So I just wanted to speak as a former instructor to the after school classes, that often what would happen is that it wouldn't be until the class was just about to start that there would be these very eager kids asking me how could they possibly become a part of it. And teaching at Coleman, a lot of them could not afford to do the after school program. And so my concern is that if you offer the money in July, that by the time that the classes for after school are starting, that there might not be the funds available for those last minute. They're not planning that far ahead. That's my concern, is that there wouldn't be anything left for those students.
Yeah, many of our, it was a little bit tricky trying to figure out the timing of that, because there's summer camps, there's kind of a big need there. And then there's the fall enrichment. I mean, our idea in setting it in July was that some of the January money would still be available for those summer camps, and would kind of get, at least because camps begin in June, right? So a lot of the June and July camps would be covered through the January tranche of money. And then the July tranche would kind of have those August camps, but there would also then be sufficient going into kind of the September school year. So that was our hope. That's our hope. I think we're gonna have to see how that goes, if that's realistic. To be honest, at the moment, I am hopeful that we will have enough money to meet the need without running out. We'll have to see. To be honest, our scholarship program has been pretty undersubscribed in the past. And we're hoping that by kind of creating this more transparent, clear policy that's on the website, we'll get more folks, because we know that it's not that the need's not there. It's that somehow we're missing that communication. So we're hopeful that we'll get more folks coming. At the moment, we do have significantly more scholarship funding than has been utilized in the past. So I think it's going to be a learning process, but yeah, I hear you. And I think I think we're just going to have to see how it goes.
And I also have a concern. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Susan.
I was going to say, I'd just like to add, I've worked for other agencies that did it once a year. And by the time, no matter when you started, if you started on the calendar year, you ran out by the following fall. If you started July 1, because a lot of cities are getting this money through other sources. And so a lot of cities start in July 1. Well, you've missed the opportunity for enrollment for summer camps in March and April, which is when you enroll. So you can imagine whatever programs happen after July 1, like a vacuum, they just got all that funding for scholarships. And if your program happens to hit March, you are out of luck every year. Mm-hmm. So as staff, we kind of looked at this and said, let's try the pilot in the first year of dividing it into 2 equal portions to see if that addresses it. So hopefully we cover the 2 periods. And at first we kind of played with the different dates. So what we're hoping, like Catherine indicated, is if we release 1 period in January, there's usually not a whole lot going on in January, but it gives people about a month's worth of time to find out, apply, knowing that they have scholarship funding, so then they could take advantage of the March, April camps, because we really anticipate that that's going to be the big ask. The second big ask is fall. So by releasing the funding in July and making that application period at that time, people will know by August if they've gotten the money in time, hopefully, for the fall after school enrichment programs, as well as other things. We anticipate the youth is going to be the biggest need.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess the other thing that sort of pops into my head, and I'm sorry if this is not PC or whatever, but I feel like a lot of the after school programs are starting to be run by maybe for-profit businesses, like not like, do you know what I mean? Like they're like outside companies that are sort of coming in. It seems like there are sort of companies that are coming in and offering these classes. And I wonder, like, how is that? Is it like then giving scholarship money to businesses is my concern. That's all. Like, I feel like the camp thing is like a slightly different than a for-profit business running a after school program.
So
do they have to be nonprofits?
You want me to respond to that?
Sure.
So as you know, most of our programs are led through instructor contractors, right? And
Mhm.
so we contract with other, whether it is a nonprofit or it is a business or it's an individual, instructor who's in business for self. And so all of those contract agreements are negotiated with the city and they have to provide the same thing. When we receive scholarship funding, it is to subsidize that person's participation in that program. So I'm not sure, I don't think this answers your question, but the business or the nonprofit or the individual in business for self does not walk away with any more revenue than they would if the participant had paid to enroll 100%. So
I'm just concerned that the businesses will promote the scholarships easier or better. You know what I mean? Like that kind of a thing. Like they'll be able to sell it better because they're an actual business rather than the individual instructors or the, camps or something like that.
I think I guess my thought on that is it's really on the city to be promoting the scholarship program,
Mhm.
and to make sure that our customers or potential customers are aware of it, no matter which program they want to participate in, whether it's an individual instructor or someone participating in the big Lego camps or whichever classes that are run by kind of these companies that do them across the region. So I think that's going to be on us to make sure that it's well promoted and that people know about it, not just because it's being promoted by this company for their class, but it's promoted for all of our programs kind of equally.
Great. Yeah, that's all my concern is that it would somehow start to get funneled towards the
Right.
businesses for profit rather than, making sure that it's available for all of the activities.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, definitely.
They still need to apply and be approved through the city. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And now it's open to adults, whereas before it was only for youth. And so there's an equity portion of this change that we think is really important, that people of need span a variety of age groups and a variety of interests. And I know Catherine did an incredible presentation, but she gave you a lot of information. And it was important to know that it was not available to subsidize aquatics programs. It was not available for adults to participate before. So we really think that this is much more equitable as far as the application process and how it's applied to throughout San Rafael and the residents.
Yeah, I know that it was a mystery to me. It was like, well, I think that's out there somewhere. Maybe you can ask somebody, was my response always. So I definitely support the idea that there's a clear pathway to it. I think that's excellent. I really support that.
It will also be available in Spanish because a lot of our need does come from individuals and families that speak Spanish. The nice thing also to note, it has nothing to do with the scholarship program, but a lot of the inquiries come to our front counter, and the majority of people that we've been hiring to open up our centers are bilingual, which we feel will be extremely helpful when we get questions, that they will be able to get that information firsthand, as well as the information in both English and Spanish.
I'm sorry if I missed this, but I think it's a good segue into, I was just wondering, like, where is the scholarship communicated to underserved communities? How do we kind of do that? I think it's great that we're in a position to expand it. I just want to make sure that people are hearing about it. So.
Yeah, currently it hasn't been well communicated. So I think that's partly because we didn't really have much clear information to communicate. So I think it's going to be put on the city's website. We're going to have the applications themselves will be available at all of our community centers.
Okay.
And I think that's a good question that we'll need to think about. Kind of what other avenues can we get for making sure people know about this. And I think a lot of it will be through the schools and through those programs. I know that we in the past typically send out kind of pamphlets to the schools where we have after school programs, and just making sure this information is included on the pamphlet, that for a scholarship, go to this website, things like that. So yeah, I think one thing to note, is that, a lot of our low-income communities, obviously in the Canal neighborhood, and many of the programs at Borough Community Center are already free. So actually, the Borough Community Center gets very little of the scholarship money, much less than you would think, primarily because most of those programs are already free. So there's nothing to subsidize there. But, still, that obviously that community will want to participate in activities beyond just pickleweed. So, yeah.
I think Commissioner Emerson.
Commissioner Emerson?
Oh, yeah. I have a few, one comment and just a couple questions. So I really think you guys this is still proposed, right? In terms of it's not final. So I think you should consider having a self-attestation for the income, because I do think having a document that you're in a program can be a barrier. And there might be a way for you guys to have just someone say, I'm poor, or, people are working under the table. And I think it is a barrier to provide this documentation for people. So it's something we do a lot in the county. We've done a lot with COVID, because sometimes people just don't have that proof. And you wouldn't want people to not participate in the programs just because they weren't enrolled in a government program if they are really poor. So that was the first comment, to just consider adding a self-attestation process. And the second question I have is, so this isn't going to change Alborough's practices in terms of how they waive policies. This is just a whole blanket thing. Okay.
This is
So
separate.
Good. So then the other thing I had is that, the community use just 12 times. That seems like if you had a group that you felt like you really wanted to, 12 times might not be enough. So I'm just kind of wondering about the 12, and if there's, if it was a weekly program that you would want to waive the fees for, if you're limited to 12, then you wouldn't be able to. So I'm just saying, modeled after Alboro, where they waive for entire, weekly programs when they find it worthy. So is that something that you would want to adopt countywide or citywide?
Excuse me, muted.
I can probably answer that question. I think I can. So the community use policy at the Albert J. Borough Community Center, Pickleweed Park, was council driven when that community center was opened up. The cost, and we just went all over the fees with you guys last month. And so the cost recovery expectations for the San Rafael Community Center, Terra Linda Community Center are quite different. And so the policy that we are proposing to you is literally solidifying what has been practiced but not adopted. So in many cases, we've had individual groups come up and use the community center. And our practice was that if you let us know within 30 days and you're a nonprofit and you're having a meeting, all the things that Catherine just went through, you can have free use of the room, and here are all the things. It was just never formalized. So what we've been asked to do is any of these outstanding practices to be formally adopted. So what we're asking to do is not expand the use or the allocation of free use of the building beyond what has already been done for the last 10 years. It's just to formalize it. So one of the concerns would be, Commissioner Emerson, is the facilities, again, the cost recovery expectations on the San Rafael Community Center are pretty substantial. And that's the reason why we just went through all the rental fees. The 12 uses, free uses by nonprofits, are to help be a partnership and help subsidize and support their meetings and their functions without being a revenue drain on the facility. Many groups do rent our facilities, and that is income that helps to support the organization and the community center. So there's a balance, I guess, is where my point is trying to make.
Commissioner
Thanks,
Emerson?
Susan. That's helpful.
Okay.
But I still really want, your feedback on the self-attestation, because I do think that that's an important piece.
Commissioner Emerson, I have a question, because it's, one, we kind of providing documentation of being in a safety net program is one way, but we also accept like pay stubs and have found that in our current scholarship program, most people provide pay stubs. Do you feel that's still, there's still a barrier even with those included as kind of forms of?
Well, I think as you're expanding to adults, there are people who will not have a pay stub. They'll be working under the table. And I mean, it may be just the outlier, but it's something we do as a common practice as the county, is we have a self-affidavit process for income so people can qualify for services, just to reduce that barrier. Because not everybody has a pay stub and not everybody's enrolled in a government program, but that doesn't mean they don't meet the eligibility criteria.
I think that's a really good question and a really good thought to propose to our city attorney's office. Right now, we've been using our vending machine money, the revenue that we get from that, to help support this program. We are looking going forward to asking individuals, when you participate, if you want to donate a couple extra dollars to go towards a scholarship program. I think it'll be important as we go forward and develop other revenue streams to help support this program and grow it, the expectations of how that money is allocated back out to residents. So whether or not we are allowed to accept the same validation that the county does, we'll have to take a look. Some of the sources that we might receive money might require us to validate people's qualifications. So I think that's a great question. And if you can send us any information or any of the forms that you use in the county, I think that would be helpful for us to share with our city attorney.
Sure, I'd be happy to send you some
That'd be
examples.
great.
Yeah.
Because actually it'd be a lot easier if we could do something like that. But I think the other question always comes up when people are donating money to a scholarship program, they want to make sure that the vetting process is really accurate. It's done well. And so if this is something that can be done well and we feel it can be vetted properly and also respect individuals' privacy, we would love to be able to do that.
Commissioner Gutierrez, do you have something to?
Yeah, I was wondering, do you guys have any expectations for budget in terms of, or I should say, as you were talking to other agencies and moving from this vending machine budget, which I like, to this donation budget? What are the expectations? Do you have any idea? Like, do you know what the participation rate is like?
Well, we're going to continue to allocate the vending machine money to the scholarship program to make sure we don't, go from, because through the vending machines, obviously 2020 was a blip, but in general, we make about $10,000 to $15,000 through the vending machines. We have been hearing from the vending machine providers that they're not so excited about the revenue share model we have. So we are concerned that that could, just even separately from this conversation, we're not quite sure how stable or long-term that revenue source is going to be. So it's a good time that we're looking at these alternative sources. From other agencies, it seems like they are able to make about in that range through this donation process. I think we'll have to see, but I think at the same time, we're not confident enough that we're going to get there to completely say we're going to go from one to the other. So we're kind of trying to hedge our bets and see how it goes. I think, the other thing that by making this a more robust developed policy is that we could go to like the Elks clubs or the Rotary clubs and start, getting more, like grant money that way for this program.
Yeah, I've worked for a few agencies that 100% of the funding came through donations, individual donations through registrations, and they funded the entire program that way. Some of the other cities got donations from, as Catherine just indicated, the Elks Club, Rotary, things like that. And then one city I worked for, well, actually the two different agencies, one got some funding through CDBG every year, and the other city actually had it as a line item in the general fund budget. They subsidized it by $13,000 a year. I don't think we're there yet, but CDBG and some of the other opportunities would be out there.
Yeah, and it seems like by sort of adopting these policies, that'll be easier to get other donations. Do you have any idea what you expect? Like, do you think there'll be a lot more adults taking part in the scholarship, and will it reduce the children? I guess the children's participation up to this point hasn't been fully utilized, then there's obviously room. But do you have any expectations on if that balance is going to shift considerably? I think it's great. I think it's a no-brainer. There's plenty of adults that need these services, these recreation and services, and why would we leave them out? I'm just sort of curious if you guys
Yeah, I think
have
it's,
any expectations.
yeah. So I've only worked for 2 agencies that accepted scholarship applications from adults for adult programs. And in that one city, they actually had a huge, very robust adult programming. They ran their own senior center, ran theater arts programs and trips and tours for seniors. And it still was at least 3/4 was youth and 1/4 was used for the adult population, more towards the older adult population. In this city, even if we open it up, the majority of programs that we offer are youth-based. And a lot of the older adult programs that we have, I mean, we have ceramics and we have swim passes and some stuff like that, but it kind of jumps and then it goes towards Golden Heirs. And this would be, the scholarship funding would not be used towards Golden Heirs because that's a separate organization. So I still think by default, because of the types of programs we offer, it's mainly going to be used by youth and families. But we are excited. I mean, there's some stuff like it was never used for aquatics. Like,
Yeah.
there's some really great value in teaching people how to swim or having, being able to exercise in a very healthy environment. And water is one of the best things, no matter your age group. So to be able to offer that as an opportunity for scholarships to be applicable, it's fantastic.
Was there any expansion of this sort of general scope of policy that you opted not to do, like more fee waivers or more discounts, or was there any sort of avenue you didn't take for any reason?
I mean, the one thing we did discuss going up to kind of the 100% of program fees. I think, there's some schools of thought out there that having people contribute at least, a bit is kind of increases buy-in, increases kind of the value they get from that. So that's kind of why we went with the 75%. And looking at most of our programs, 75% I think would get things to quite an affordable level. I think that's something we can keep an eye on. And if we're still hearing from people that's not enough, we can revisit that. But that was one area where we kind of thought maybe we'll go farther, and we pared it back a little bit for the moment.
Thank you, guys.
One of the impacts that Catherine just spoke about, that again, this is a pilot program. The twice-a-year allocation is part of the pilot, but as we go through this, we might need to come back to the commission and say we want to revise this because we're beginning to find out different things. I did work for an agency that went to 100%. There was a mindset at the time that if people can't afford something, they can't afford it, and so they had a three-tier system based on the income levels of to what extent would be waived, and the value per individual and family was increased. They got rid of it. So obviously it didn't work really well. But one of the things I did notice while I was at that agency when we made that change is we ran out of money so fast your head could spin, because we did grant 100%, and the thresholds were a lot higher. So the balance here is by having it at 75% and having a cap for an individual and family, that money should be able to touch more individuals. It should be spread over that net should be cast wider. When that value goes up, less people actually benefit. Fewer people benefit more, but a lot less people get impacted by it. So we'll have to play a little bit by that and see if that works out, but we're assuming it will.
So when people, I'm just trying to follow the chain of how it would work. So let's say they would have to first sign up for the class and then apply for the scholarship, or
apply for the scholarship first.
Okay.
So there's kind of 2 ways folks can go about doing it. They can submit an application without having a class in mind to kind of pre-qualify, so that if they wanted to sign up for a class that's very popular, as soon as that opens, they could contact us and we could get them signed up for it with their scholarship, because they'd already be pre-qualified. Or but the thing that is kind of important for them to know, just because they're pre-qualified doesn't mean there's going to be funding available when the class they want happens. So, you know, say the class was at the end of a period and we had run out of money, you know, then it's not a guarantee that that money is going to be available when they want it. It's just a guarantee that they can go through the process more quickly. Otherwise, they could wait for the program, you know, see if they want a program, apply for the scholarship, and then we'd sign them up for it. But they do need to be signed up. The way our system works is our staff would need to sign them up for the program.
But again, that's why we kind of like the idea of the pre-approval. It's no different, like, well, it is very different, but when you go to buy a house, knowing that you're going to be pre-approved before you start really looking into something. In the past, people have wanted to sign up for a class, and I just can imagine the energy being expelled if somebody goes, I want to sign up for this class, but I don't have the money, so I need to go to the scholarship. They go through that process. Either they got qualified or they didn't. They found out they didn't have money, or they did, and by the time they get back to the class, it's now taken. So we're trying to put the horse in front of the cart to make it a little easier, but there are no promises, as Catherine said. Sometimes they get pre-qualified. By the time they decide to take a class 6 months later, maybe the money has already been allocated, but it's the best way to go. So people understand upfront if they have that opportunity, and then can explore signing up for a program.
Great. Yeah, that kind of helps address that last minute scramble that I was seeing. So yeah.
Well, the pressure on the teacher, I can only imagine if they came to the school and say, I want to sign up for your class, but I don't know if I'm going to get it. And by the time they realize they can or they can't, that spot's taken. So.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments from the commissioners? So I just have one comment and just a thought. Has the city ever tried something like a buy one, give one? You know, if somebody's going to sign up for a class and a parent that makes money and sees a great it's a great class for their child and sees that it might be an opportunity for them to sponsor another child to be in that, or another. Anyhow, maybe it's a question or a box that can be checked on an application. Instead of buy one get one, it's buy one give one, and you're helping out someone that's going to be in that program. So I don't know, something.
No, it's a great idea. The city of LA does a camp scholarship, and they run it through the LA Times, and you donate money and you get I send a kid to camp shirt, and all that money goes to send kids to camp, and it's from people who are participating in the camp program themselves. That to me would be like a fundraising campaign. Besides the incremental donations that we get, that's a great strategy to go after, kick off a summer, sign one, give one, so I think that's a wonderful suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a lot, right? So the programs don't cost a ton of money. So, you could do one extra.
Yeah, and the nice thing is when people do donate to the city, because we have a federal ID number, they can write it off. People don't often know that.
All right. Anything else? Okay, so I will ask for a motion to accept the report for the review of proposed scholarship and community center meeting room fee waiver policies. Can I get a motion from one of our commissioners, please?
I'll move to approve the city's proposed scholarship and community center meeting room fee waiver policies.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All right. Becky, will you do the honors, please?
Commissioner Cabrales,
Yes.
Commissioner Emerson,
No, because I'd like to see self-attestation included in the proposal before I approved it. Sorry.
okay. Commissioner Gutierrez,
Yes.
Chair Machado,
Yes.
and Commissioner Sandoval.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we, Susan, we can still work on what Cicely was asking for, right? In regards to
Absolutely.
that? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. So the feedback we'll provide to you, we're going to ask the question if that is something that we can do. And if it is something that we can do, we will let you know that that's what we're going to be doing. We just don't
Great.
have the answer for you right now if we can do that. Sometimes it's a little different to accept forms in regards to leisure activities because it is not a health requirement, it's not education. And so sometimes we have different guidelines. We're not as free to waive fees or do certain things. So let us look into it because Commissioner Emerson really brings up a great point. And if we can do it, it would make everything a lot easier.
Great. Thank you very much. So now we move on to commission reports and comments. Any reports from the commissioners? None? Staff comments?
I have a quick, is it a report? I just want to say thank you for opening the library. We're very excited.
All back to normal. Except our staff is incognito and will be for a while. But if you haven't heard, we're open, real open. All 3 libraries are open. All the hours, by the way, in case you ever get questions, all of our community center, childcare, Falkirk, and the library hours are posted on the website. So if somebody is curious as to what are the hours at the different libraries, because they are all different, you can just refer to that. They will be changing on July 1, even more so. Same with our community centers. We're going to even open them up a little bit more as staff comes back. So I'm glad you're enjoying it. And it's great to have you back. I know staff is really excited to have you.
All right. Susan, are there more staff comments?
Oh, I should also say I have been going to the park and there's so much happening at the parks right now. There was the tech camps and workout camps, and like it was not a Santa Fe Park, but like just seeing the parks alive again is really exciting and wonderful, I have to say.
Nice.
Yeah, I can provide a little bit, just a little update on kind of what's going on with the division. We started summer camps this week, so that was very exciting. Both our childcare camps, they're the camps run by kind of our childcare program, as well as a lot of our youth enrichment camps. We have them at different places throughout the city: Santa Fe Community Center, Falkirk, Terra Linda, Borough, and in some of the parks as well. So we weren't able to have as many camps as we normally do, particularly in youth enrichment, but we did get a number of camps going, and we've had really strong enrollment, which has been great to see. Both the Terra Linda and Hamilton pools are now open, and we've had huge demand for those swim sessions. We are excited to announce that in July, we're going to be doubling our capacity. And kind of doubling the number of reservations available for each time slot. We're also going to be lengthening the time slot times a bit and reducing the fees because we're able to increase capacity. We can reduce fees, which is really great. We unfortunately do not have the staffing to just fully reopen and kind of go back to the drop-in model. There is also still concern about, especially on really hot days, we often hit max capacity and there's lines and people waiting. And so to kind of avoid that, we are going to keep the reservation system through this season. But we are going to be increasing our capacity substantially. So hopefully that'll help alleviate some of the demand that we've been seeing. We also
really quickly share just like a super quick anecdote on the pool and reservation thing. Pool reservations for our pool at my work drove higher attendance than typical in May. Are you guys seeing that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think oftentimes we'll have lap swim open and have maybe 1 or 2 people swimming. And now we've got, 8 full lanes of folks every swim session. So
we found that. We actually found that fascinating. And I'm not sure if everyone's kind of getting the point here, is when we're normally open for rec swim well, rec swim's a bad example, but lap swim's a good example. When we normally are open for lap swim in pre-COVID times, the pool is open for specific hours. 1 or 2 people might show up. All of a sudden, we say it's by reservation only. We're booked solid. We have more people in the pool than we ever did. So there are some agencies we're already hearing they might not ever go back. Like it's working. So at least for lap swim, it's working.
So the people are actually showing up who sign up then.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
it's
there's a
fantastic.
feeling of like commitment.
Excellent. Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Thank you.
Other good news is our pickleweed soccer fields reopened this past Saturday. This is the first time in a year and a half between kind of the regular maintenance and then COVID closures. So we're really excited to have those open again. It's such an important community resource. So excited for that. Have our fingers crossed about the state of the fields as we get farther into the summer and the drought and all of that. But for the moment, we're celebrating. The Pacifics have also started playing again at Albert Park Field, so that's exciting. And the field is just really booked up with Little League and all the different user groups out there. So it's a packed schedule there. We're going to be starting our rentals again in the beginning of July. So we've got a lot of folks, who have postponed their big events, looking to get those going again. So we are accepting large event rentals starting in July. And as I mentioned earlier, the fees are going to the council on July 6th. So that's another big milestone that we're looking forward to. Then we'll be rolling them out. So I think those are kind of the big updates from the division at the moment.
Thanks, Catherine. Hey, Susan, one other question in regards to the drought. So how are we handling it? How are we going to handle watering all the parks, and what are we doing?
So park maintenance has been notified on reducing the amount of time that they water and how many days they water. They did get an exception to some of the highly used areas like the pickleweed field. So they're going to be able to not water it as much as we'd like to, but not be reduced as severe as we thought we would. So I can't quite remember the amount of days, but I think we were looking at either 1 or 2 days originally, and I think we're allowed to stay at 2 or 3, which is what we need. Otherwise, we could lose the field. So,
well, we can't wait to get that turf field in. So,
well, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah, on that note, we do have a site visit with the state, it's called OGAL, Office of something. The folks that administer the statewide park program Prop 68 grant. So we have a site visit with them in July to talk about the project and show them the site.
Nice.
Is there anything happening with the garden?
Application?
That's great.
Is there anything happening with the gardens in terms of water usage for the community gardens? Is that being monitored or changed?
Well, the timing that they're able to water is restricted to kind of that 7 p.m. to 9 a.m. So that's been communicated. The only watering that's allowed there in general is either hand watering or drip irrigation. So and we don't allow timers. People have to be there watching their plots to make sure that there aren't leaks and things like that. So that's all kind of continuing. And I think the restrictions around hand watering and drip watering are much more lenient. But we are enforcing kind of the times, has to be in the cooler hours of the day.
It's also community gardens are not as
restrictions are being enforced there.
Yeah, community gardens are not as restricted as well because a lot of them are producing food. So that's the reason why we don't have as many or many more restrictions on them. But it's interesting to know.
Because
that's
it's not
one of those things.
on. It's okay. That makes sense.
All right. Is there anything else from staff? Susan, we got some meetings coming, some dates you want to talk about?
Yeah, so it looks like we originally had talked about going dark in either July or August, and just would like to know if the commission has any kind of feeling about canceling one meeting over the other. We do have the steering committee that will be brought forward to you at one of those 2 months. So, we definitely are going to need to meet because we'll need you to take action. But in the beginning of the year, we had mentioned that we might go dark in July or August and wanted to know if you have a preference.
I have no preference.
I think the August 19th, would that be the date?
Yeah, so I know that's the same week that we're doing all those interviews.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
maybe
the first
is-
day of school for Santa Fe City Schools, the 19th. So my vote would be dark in August, not July.
Are you all
Okay.
right with that? Does that work for
But
everybody?
that's
Commissioner Emerson?
me.
That sounds good for me.
All right.
All right,
Yeah,
all
sounds
parents unite. Okay, so we'll let you go to your back to school night or your back to school day, right? Finally, what a day to celebrate.
I
don't wanna
know.
From that,
It'll
right?
just be a really long day for some of us. So we
Really
will
long.
appreciate not having a meeting at 6.
Mhm.
But I'm so glad. Thank you, Chair, for asking. I never realized it was going to be such an obvious decision. So thank you for that. My kids are grown. My baby's 22, so I've kind of forgotten those things. But yeah, so we'll meet you in July, and you'll be off in August for good behavior.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And
Thank you.
is that it, Susan?
That's it.
All right. Well, I'm adjourning this meeting at, I don't know, what time is it? 7:32. Thank you very much, commissioners. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Susan. Appreciate it very
Absolutely.
much.
Have a good
All right,
night.
you guys.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Bye.
Good night.
See ya.
Good night.